is KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
Welcome into another episode of Booth Review. Quite an exciting one today. Obviously celebrating a big dub after Kansas beats Oklahoma. I am here with my guy, Brandon McAnderson, B-Mac. I'm so excited to see you here. Obviously, I haven't really got to talk to you since the game. I know we were texting a little bit during the game, but I'm excited you're here, and I'm excited you brought a friend, too.
Absolutely. I brought my dog, Derek Fine, the tight end, the great one, the former Buffalo Bill. Come on and talk some football. He's got that unique perspective, being a Sallisaw, Oklahoma native. He knows a lot about this OU matchup. So I wanted to have an Oklahoma guy talk about the biggest victory in the last 2 decades over that team just down south of us. Derek, man, welcome to the show, bro.
Appreciate it. I'm happy to be here. I'm excited. I've got all my notes and stuff together.
Hey, run through the
breakdown.
Let's hopefully your whole page of notes has been unloaded on our fan base so they can learn all the things they can learn from you. So I just want to start, the common thing is when you're from a place with a great team, it is this team didn't recruit me, because they have the pick of the litter. They have a national recruiting base. They're one of the great teams. But as an Oklahoma native, it's not that simple, is it? Just describe the mentality of Oklahoma guys that scrape and earn everything they get and come to a place like Kansas and have a chance to beat the hometown team.
Man, it's different. Like in Oklahoma, so it's exactly like you talked about, right? So coming out of Oklahoma, all of us, majority of guys in Oklahoma want to go and play at OU. Majority of us, right? You're going to have some of your OSU outliers, but for years and years and years, a lot of the kids that go to Oklahoma and OSU are Texas kids. And so the Oklahoma kids get passed over. I think that's a big detriment to those schools because the kids that are local in the state, this is just my opinion, I think they play way harder for the team. It means something, right? It means a lot. So getting passed over by them and then really getting to go in and just kick the crap out of them, dude, it's the best thing in the world. I've been waiting on this since 2002. Right?
Yeah, man.
2002. And so it feels good. Here's a good analogy to look at it, right? So basketball was invented here in Kansas.
Yeah.
So people love basketball here. So football in Oklahoma is similar to Kansas basketball here, right? People, OU football fans, love OU. They die. They bleed red. I mean, it's crazy, right? That's how they feel about it there. That's how we felt about it. So to be able to get that win over, a perennial program is killer. It's killer.
And tell me about somebody like I know that you love. I know that Kent and I have started our own individual Daniel Highshaw fan base. But describe what it's like seeing a guy right near Norman, a guy that's from the area, really punish them in the run game and finish in the end zone. Describe what it's like that not just a Jayhawk got through, but an Oklahoma Jayhawk is in there creating havoc for the Sooners.
Dude, there's nothing like it. There's nothing like it. I'm freaking out every time he's carrying the ball because he hits somebody in the mouth. He plays football the way I play football.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's the way that I think that you're supposed to play the game. That was how I played the game.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, he's got that finesse, but he's also going to bash you in the mouth, right? And, man, having a guy on our team like that and watching him just truck guys, put his hand right in their face and just throw them down, it's the most glorious thing in the entire world.
Absolutely. So I did see you down in the stadium during the rain delay, and we had a little conversations about what we were going to see. We actually discussed meeting on the field once we were able to rush the field. But describe what you were going through as a fan. There were a lot of ups and downs in this game. I think that's the takeaway that I have the most is that, we didn't play an 8+ game. I don't even think we played an A- game and ended up getting the biggest win in 2 decades. What was it like for you from your perspective, seeing them make mistakes, recover, find a way to keep pushing the ball forward and finish the game?
I think that it's program builder. You know what I mean? For me, watch them. The word that comes to mind for me is gritty. They're a gritty, stinking team. And they're building the program to be able to last for many years after this. Those are the things that I see, right? That's what I'm thinking about is, how long is this program going to continue to last and be able to compete at a high level? And that's what these kids are implementing. The same way that we were doing that back in 03 and getting smashed back then.
Yeah.
I see it as a program building moment in kids that are building the program because it matters to them, right? They don't quit. They're playing through the whole game. Here's something that I was looking at. On that first interception, whenever you watch the highlight, you see him run into the end zone, but one of the other defensive guys, he's blocking, and he slams the quarterback down to the ground. So it's the extra effort.
Right.
That's what I see in this win, and what I see in terms of like character, right? I mean, big time character with his team, and to be able to prolong this and leave a legacy. That's what I see with it. I think it's amazing.
Absolutely, man. I'm with you all the way. Seeing them come up and beat an OU team that we came close a couple times. You know, we had some opportunities that we couldn't finish. To see them actually get over the hump, and not just get over the hump, but what it means for the team now. You know, like what I like about this team is that every time they reach a plateau, it's almost like watching your child. You know, like your kid learns to tie their shoes. You're like, okay, I see you. Or they learn their interpersonal skills. You're like, oh, okay, good. And watching this KU football team, it's been like that. The win against Texas was the first plateau. Then they transition the second year. How are they going to play with expectations? Boom, they're 5-0. They finish in the bowl game. They're down 20. They fight back and finish and get the game to overtime. And it's just all these little plateaus. And this was the next one. And it was more than a plateau. It was a leap. Was there a moment in your career where we had made that leap? And what did it make the next step harder or easier? I know, in my opinion, that next step was harder once you got to the plateau that got you a little higher as a team.
Yeah. I think for us, it probably would have been 2006.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, I mean, 2006, we're that close to having one loss.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I think Mizzou was probably the only game that I really felt, hey, we got this handed to us pretty good. OSU, we were up by 21. I think that 2006, you know, at the end of the season, when we saw what we could have done, right? How close we were and how far we had come from just bad offenses, bad defenses, all those different pieces. And then seeing it in 2006 really kind of come together. Because, I mean, if we have the ball bounce here and there, bounce our way in some of those games, we're a 1 or 2 loss team. Mm-hmm. And everybody knew it, right? I think it was harder getting past that plateau and be able to get over that mountain because we had to do the work. And so that took everybody, right? It took everybody. And we were a character team, and we rested on our character, but we had to put everybody together to be accountable all at the same time. And so we're doing extra 7-on-7. Nobody's missing workouts, right? We're a character team that put it together. 2006 was my moment, and I think that everybody saw that and then put it together in that summer and then through winter ball in 2007. So we created the legacy from there.
Absolutely. Now, one of my favorite things about this offense is the tight ends. They make us so multiple. We move guys, we motion, we shift. It might be the most fun offense to play tight end in the country. Now, describe to me, like, which part do you look? I know you'd want to play them all because they do so much cool stuff. But when you look at it, what do you take away from that tight end room and what they do with them? And how fun is it to play in all these different scenarios and different functions as the same player?
Man, I think it's awesome. I think it'd be a blast. So I was watching those guys a lot more in detail today, right? And just kind of seeing what they were doing, if they had different strengths or weaknesses or what they were kind of having them do. I digress a little bit there, but I think that what they're doing with the tight ends is incredible because they're moving them all over the field. They're moving them into the backfield. They're lead blocking. The thing that would be fun for them, in my opinion, they're creating awesome matchups for them, both in the run game and the pass game, right? So you got big fellas. Majority of the time, at least in the OU game, they're blocking corners and safeties, right? Now, they're putting them in a good position to be able to block those guys. Why not put your big guy on one of these small guys and be able to run the ball that way, put them in a better matchup versus a linebacker or something like that? I didn't get that pleasure, right? So I think for them, they continue to put them in good spots to be able to succeed, right? And so then also whenever they're doing all that shifting and moving around, Your defense has got to wait. They got to pause. They got to be patient, and they got to think, right? Versus if you don't have those shifts, some of those guys just line up and just fire off and go.
Absolutely.
Right? So I think it holds them off. It creates better matchups. If you're a tight end in this country, this is the place that you want to be. Any skill position for that matter.
Right.
Running back, receiver. This is a fun offense. You're going to move around. You're going to do a lot of things. But then with the tight ends, probably the best thing for them, with all the different matchups that they're creating and different places they line up in the backfield, splitting out, got their hand in the dirt. The NFL is looking at that. And if you can do all of those things, that's going to create a much, much more desirable player for that business league. Seriously, that's awesome.
I'll tell you, I know there's a lot of interest in the KU tight ends, the H-backs right now. Mason Fairchild, I know is highly regarded by some people in the league. And Jared Casey, I just saw someone rank him as one of their top H-backs in their NFL rankings as well. So they are definitely getting a lot of love right now in the NFL space as well from a prospect perspective. People really like Mason. I know Mason Fairchild's got some fans. You said it's fun for a tight end skill player to play in this offense. I mean, the O linemen are getting a shift in motion. Like we got Dom Pooney's flexed out, and then he's like, I mean, you're getting fun with splits. You're getting fun with all kinds of stuff. Everyone's getting involved and contributing to some of the pre-snap stuff. It's kind of fun to watch for sure.
As you see those guys start to get a little bit more attention, sorry about that, fellas. If you see like what they're capable of doing, how do you see their skill sets transferring onto the NFL field, knowing that you went through it and you had to go through those struggles as a young player and find your fits? How do you feel about these guys projecting as a league as guys that can last and maybe find some staying power?
Yeah. So with Casey, I just don't know. I don't know as much on the H-back spot, right? And he's one of those guys that's going to just take the right offense. He can find the right offense and be in the right place. That's going to be everything for him versus another offense where they, if they just bring him in to be another body, be another fullback or something, that's not going to be for him. Mason is very solid. Not that Casey's not. Mason's very solid, man. I think that his skill set translates to the league very, very well. Very well. He's got good footwork. I think that that's really a good result of, or a good indicator of really, really good coaching. He's got a good base. He generally has his hands inside. Now he's not a killer, right? I mean, he's not a headhunter. Mm-hmm. That's not what I see with him doing. But he's already using his footwork the way that the NFL asks you to do it, right? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, he's still like getting his leverage and saying, all right, here's your running lane to the running back. Once you get into the league, everything's just square, right? So they tell you in the league, here, just stay square. You let the running back run where he wants to go. Don't tell him where to go. We pay him a shitload more money than we do you. So you got to let him run wherever he wants to go, right? And Mason already has just kind of a natural knack for doing that and being square on guys and being able to get in front of them. And if you watch guys in the NFL, not a lot of those guys are killers.
Right.
But they can stay in front. As long as they can stay in front and they can stay square, they've got good footwork and then good hands. That's really all that they're asking them to do. Let the running back do what he needs to do. But everything else with Mason, good footwork, good technique. He's got good speed. You can tell he's got good speed. He's a big dude, man.
Yeah.
He's a big guy.
Yeah, that's what I liked about him too, was that his inline blocking was just, I like how he can use his weight to lean on people. And I like he has the speed enough to leak out and really be a threat down the middle of the field. He's not a guy that does a ton run after the catch, but what he does is it fits in these schemes well as a runner, sneaks out with good technique, is a hands catcher. He can catch those option routes, those contested option route catches. I love what he's been doing. And man, Cardell, what his length and ability, he's somebody that I think is just scraping about this much of his ability. So even those guys that are even on the back end of that, they just have so much talent there. And I've had so much fun watching them get after it, man. Just give me some final thoughts on this OU win and what you see as the ceiling for this team?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I don't know what the ceiling could be. I mean, I think the ceiling's winning out.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, and that's a realistic thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how to answer it. I think for them, if they can win out, or at least win, I don't know, if they can get to 8 wins, that's a big step, man. That's a big step in the right direction. They've got to win over OU. Those things really, really matter. Here's one thing I was thinking about too, just off the top of my head. So after the game, right? Obviously, I'm blowing up Facebook because the majority of people I know are all in Oklahoma, right? Yeah. And so I'm trolling, doing my thing, but I was going through and I was looking at some of the different comments, the different posts from some of the other, OU Homer people. And one of the guys had said something about KU, good win. You guys are half as talented, but we got out-coached and outplayed today. I don't think that that's really the case anymore.
No, it's not.
Right? That was maybe the case a long time ago. We now, through the portal, which I think is a really good thing, it helps teams with a good coach be able to rebuild a lot faster. We're no longer outmanned that big by some of these other teams, right? And so we're far more competitive. And I think that any team that we're going to play against, we're going to be able to compete. Almost JD plays, nothing against Bean. JD plays against Texas. That might be another KU win. Mm-hmm. Beat OU, had opportunities to still beat OSU. I mean, realistically, this team is really, really close to being undefeated.
Yeah.
So if they can win out or at least win 2 and get up to 8 wins, we've got the guys. We definitely got the coach. We got the guys to be able to build upon that for next year and be able to set a new ceiling and then see where we go from there. This new Big 12 next year, who knows? Maybe they run the table, maybe they don't.
Right.
For sure. Well, Derek, man, it was great talking to you, my friend. I was really excited to hear from you. You're a guy I got to watch back in the day. We were actually a little bit slight overlap. I was in college while you guys were in college too, but barely. But yeah, man, it was great talking to you, and appreciate you coming on and talking a little bit of us about all kinds of stuff, tight ends, KUOU. It's been great.
No, it's my pleasure. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me, guys. I like being the guest.
Absolutely.
That's awesome, Derek. Well, we appreciate you, man. We're going to take a break. We'll be back right after this.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network.
Thanks to a KU legend, Derek Fine. I enjoyed watching him play back in the day. I'm not trying to age BMAC. I mean, BMAC, we crossover very slimly. Like, you would have been a redshirt senior when I was like a freshman in college. So we're right there, but it was great to hear from Derek Fine as well. And we're wearing home field apparel. We're rocking it as always. Just a reminder, promo code NOSEATS23 gets you a discount on all the home field apparel that's available. And they've got some great stuff for KU football season, which is going to be going into January because Kansas is going bowling, and for all your basketball needs as well. BMAC, I saw videos of you vibing on the sidelines. I saw videos of you dancing. How was it being on the sideline for that game?
Man, it was the best, worst time I've ever had. It was the worst time because it was very cold and rainy. And I just trusted the weatherman with my full heart. I did not bring a rain jacket or rain pants. So I had soggy pants for most of the game. So that part was not great. However, I will say the vibe on the sideline, the feeling, and I watched the game. We watched the game the same way. I'm looking for little details about little indicators about what's happening in the game. And regardless of what the score said, outside to me, it said Kansas has an advantage on defense against Oklahoma skill players. So I really thought it was really just a matter of time before we could win the game because they couldn't do anything but run the football. And once Brian Borland went to that man free and started sneaking Kenny in the box, that was it. They didn't have any answers for that. And that's a big statement. Like we had talked about before about this thing about when you win, it's an upset usually. But we've seen Kansas match up with OU and Texas, and their frontline talent is very comparable to OU and Texas's frontline talent, which if you would have told me that 3 years ago, I would have said, I don't know if that's ever in the cards. And that's what's amazing about the performance in that game. And I may be in the minority, but I didn't think that Kansas played an A+ game. I don't think that was even near what Bean was against Oklahoma State. I thought Devin Neal had probably my favorite game I've ever seen him play. And I thought the offensive line was pretty effective, but it wasn't a great game. They made mistakes. They had the turnover. They had 3 turnovers, overcame all of them. I just thought it was a gritty win. I thought it said a lot about where the team is. I thought it said a lot about what's coming in the future. This is a team that's going to be sticking around for a while.
There's so many themes within that game, and it's like, they start hot, which, it's like that's a positive indicator for this, where this program is coming out of the bye, coming out of, all that. And then they have the little mini meltdown, little stretch where Oklahoma gets them. They fumble the football, give up easy possessions. They lose the lead, and it deflates, right? It deflates some people, deflates some energy for some people. And a lot of the social media, I don't know if you weren't on the social maybe during the game, but it was, a little bit of, here we go. And you, like people on Twitter, you might be saying that those kids aren't in that program.
Nope.
That's the difference between the past and now, is because the response was incredible in the second half. KU was flat out better than OU in the second half. It's inarguable. I mean, obviously they put up more points than them. They were trailing at the half, come out, go out, despite, hey, you want to know something? Despite, they overcome the adversity of the last possession settling for a field goal, like that, they missed opportunity in the back of the end zones for Bean. They have to kick a field goal. They're down 4. But the second half, they were just better. They're just a better football team. They made some great schematic adjustments. I actually thought it kind of seemed to me like, you're talking about playing man free and stuff, but also schematically from the front, like it felt like they were almost playing a little bit more a little more 2-gap, a little more gap and a half almost. Really, really intentional. Like they weren't playing upfield. I don't think they really played all that much upfield anyway this entire game, but it felt like they were a lot better playing kind of just, holding point up front and letting those backers kind of flow and make some plays. Kind of felt like that defensive line, I think, gets a lot of credits. It was dirty work, but I thought that they did a really good job just kind of playing and holding the point in the middle of the field too, because it didn't feel like they were really trying to get upfield as much as they have in some of these other games.
Yeah, I thought the interior D-line was excellent, especially when they had to close out the game and get those additional stops after the Bean turnover on the screen pass. They got that ball at the plus 38, and they ended at the plus 40. So they ended up with consecutive tackles for loss on first and second down, got an additional stop on third down. It had a lot to do with just what you mentioned, those interior D-line, occupying those those guards, those interior guys, and letting guys like Cornell Wheeler, guys like Kenny Logan get up and make plays. I thought the defense responded when they needed to, and I overall thought they played pretty well, given the circumstances. Some of that tackling stuff kind of reared its head in that big second quarter, where Walker kind of had his way. It was mostly a product of missed tackles, and that's been the bugaboo for Kansas. When they struggle on defense, they don't tackle. So they were even able to overcome that. So it was nice to see them face some adversity and kind of use their depth to find answers. And that's the beautiful part about what they're doing on defense this year, is that they do have answers. They do have counters. They do have different position players they can play. They do have, my favorite as a Tommy Dunn truther is when they roll out Tommy Dunn and Devin Phillips. I get so happy because I'm thinking, what do you do with this group? Especially considering how well they run the line. They ran that 2-point conversion where they ran the reverse. Tommy Dunn made that tackle. As an interior lineman, scrapes all the way across the formation and makes the tackle. I love when those two are out there just because they had that ability to occupy, like you said, and have enough athleticism to do some things there in the right matchups.
I thought Kenny Logan had one of his best games as well, filling in and playing the run. I think that was one of the better Kenny Logan games that we've seen. I was just really impressed with the defense, and I thought they played great. Yeah, they challenged. Like, BMAC. I'll say, like, big themes, right? Like, when I look at this game, and I talk about this game, I said, hey, try to run the ball control, trying to manage that, and they just went after them. They weren't, like, I think it wasn't as much like, my whole thought was like, to try to beat a team of Oklahoma's caliber, you might have to change some things. They just played both sides of the ball. They played their game, and I'm done with run the ball a little bit more, just take the ball out of Bean's hand. No, just go play. Go play. I'm out of that. I'm out of that mentality. I've been on that in a couple of these big games. I'm done. Just go play football, because this team is a good football team that can just they can line up and play with teams. And I've taken that for granted a little bit. My whole thought is like, you might have to change some things up a little bit when you're playing. Nope, not anymore. Sorry. No, you don't have to be ball control if you don't want to. You don't have to run the football 70% of the time if you don't want to. You can sling it if you want. You can run it with you want. You're just going to line up and play because you're a good football team. And that's the facts. And you talk about them like mixing some things up defensively. They challenged OU. And they said, try to throw it, Heisman winner.
Right.
Try to deal with some adverse weather conditions, Heisman candidate, and such an impressive performance from this team, and just this culture, and I think one of the big things, I talked about this, I went live right after the game just because we had to celebrate, right? But I just like the way that it's just the lack of fear. I think it's just they go out and they just go play, and it speaks to the culture. It speaks to how they've grown as a program, and I think there's a lot of pain that some people feel from the past, and watching this team just go out and I don't know, just execute the way they did against a really good football team. I'm just, it's so impressive how far this group has come. I'm so impressed.
Yeah, there was a lot of exercising of football demons in that game, not just for the players on the field, not just for this regime, but a lot for the fan base. Seeing a team that's been close and that has been knocking on the door, but couldn't quite get the break that would get them over the hump. Bean is a guy that, late in games, his morale wavers. But what's interesting is when you ask the other players, they're just like, oh, it's just Jason. It's just Jason being Jason. And Jason delivered. And I don't want to hear another thing about Jason Bean, because this guy continues to step in. Like you mentioned, you're thinking they're going to have to call a certain game plan. I've said those exact words as recent as 3 weeks ago. And it's not me being wrong. It's them proving me wrong, which is what I really enjoy, is that Jason has achieved at a level that I'm wrong, and I will parade around my wrongness in support of what Jason has done as a developmental player. Think about this. He ends up with the screen pass, which was a great call, by the way, because they had two guys off the edge. That might have been a touchdown.
Yeah.
That defensive end didn't read it. Great call. Bean had to chuck it and get rid of it. You'd like to see him do something different, but it ended up an interception. So how does he answer that interception? He gets the dump off to Devin Neal on the play action pass. He finds him on the left side. He gets 10 yards. He finds Mason. He runs, scrambles. He gets 15 yards. He finds Mason Fairchild down the right sideline. And then you start to see them around. You start to see him dip a little bit. He gets a little pressure, throws into coverage. Looks at, Lawrence Arnold down the seam, or it might have been Luke Grimm. He throws behind him. Then you're thinking, oh, no. But what's Bean thinking? Bean's thinking, I got this. He ends up on 4th and 6. He starts out looking to the left at his number one receiver to the left, which was either Grimm or Quentin Skinner. He scrams back across the middle field. Fairchild's not available. Lawrence Arnold is. This guy went through every progression on 4th and 6. He did not get happy feet. He did not overreact. He did not lean on his speed. He leaned on his skill and his development and found Lawrence Arnold. Lawrence Arnold finished the game. What I loved about that most is if you look at OU's evaluation of this loss, Brent Venables was like, yo, man, I wish I had took a time out there. That was my bad. And nothing against Brent Venables. But when teams when a team like OU loses and they think they're supposed to win, they will find some mistake that they made that they can say, hey, that's on us. Grant Venables, that wasn't on you. That was on Jason Bean and his development as a player and his patience and growth as a player, finding Lawrence Arnold, finishing the game, and putting the Jayhawks over the top.
Yeah, that 4th and 6. That 4th and 6, I think, is emblematic of a bigger theme. I'm talking themes today, I guess. This team needed to learn to win close games. And it's not that they haven't won close games. Believe me, like we've seen them win a couple in the last year. This was different. The gravity felt different. And responding from mistakes, I think, in winning a game when you made some mistakes where, you gave up the lead and responding in that kind of way. That's what really impressed me about what this program did. And Jason Bean, like, is emblematic of some of the stuff we've seen with Jason Bean. Jason Bean wasn't perfect. He missed some opportunities. He left some throws on the field that he's definitely going to want back. But he kept firing. And like you said, in the biggest moment, he worked through 4th and 6, finds his guy. And so, yeah, maybe he made some mistakes, but he didn't let those come back and hurt him. He continued to push through. He continued to fight. And, yeah, that's really impressive from Jason Bean and what he was able to do in that game. Ton of respect for him. I'm really excited to see, how he and this program responds in this game against Iowa State. I do want to ask you a few questions about Iowa State, but before anything else from that OU game that you want to talk about, B-Mac, before we move on?
Well, it is me, Brandon McAnderson. I played running back. So I want to talk about running backs. I just want to start with Hishaw. I thought he set the tone with his physicality and speed. He had a moxie to him that looked a little different. He looked like it was personal. And you could kind of tell that early on. I thought he played with a different kind of moxie. And then I also want to highlight Devin. I thought Devin was my favorite Devin game, mostly because of his open field running. In his open field running, for the purpose of getting 4 yards, might have been the difference in the game. You usually don't see backs juke people the way that he was in the open field and end up with 3 to 5 yard carries. It wasn't like these results were 12, 15, 18 like we're used to seeing from him. I thought it was such a gritty performance. And I know it's a Halloween theme. We're talking about themes. Jared Koenig's going to see him in his nightmares because he had him in a blender multiple times, like where Koenig's unblocked in the hole, and I don't think he touched him. So I just thought Devin's ability to use those same kind of skills we've known and seen from him to become a guy that averages 7 yards a carry, to use that and grind out a 24 carry, 105, whatever he ended up in that game. I just liked the way that he played the game. He was motivated, his ability to wiggle, juke, and still power through and get those hard yardage. I thought he was awesome.
And blocking. I mean, watching him block, watching some of these, the helping free up Daniel Hishaw. And there was so many times in this game, and this is like why when I watch KU football and we talk about names and we talk about, how long you have this kid or that kid, man, you just watch this program and how team oriented the way they block is. These receivers, everyone's getting in on the action. Everyone's committed to doing these little details and executing. And the execution spans recruiting classes if you have the right kids and if you've got the right guys recruiting the right kids. And that's why it's so fun. Like, it's just the attention to detail from this program is just so impressive, and watching the way, the skill players are blocking to help gain extra yards in the run game and watching the running backs block for each other. Special, it's really special. So I was just, Devin, you had a great game. I just thought there were so many little individual small performances across the board from this team that were just so impressive.
Absolutely.
Let's move on to Iowa State. I do, because BMAC, I could talk about that Oklahoma game so much, but I watched it 3 times. It's been fun to watch, I'm not afraid. I could sit here, like, we might have to do like an oral history on that game or something in the off season, because I could relive it and talk through so many different things. But I do want to talk a little bit about Iowa State before we get out of here. I some people were kind of surprised at how tight the line was when it was released, and Iowa State being favored initially. Iowa State, I know, had a rough start to their season, but I've been really impressed with them the last few weeks that I've seen them. And I think it starts because they think they finally found consistency at the quarterback position. Rocco Becht, I think, is playing pretty good football. And I think he's kind of helped stabilize that situation enough for them where they're kind of starting to figure some things out as a team.
Absolutely. I love the way he's playing. I like good growth stories, because you remember at the beginning of this, it was ugly. When they lost to Ohio, the way that people were communicating about him in the media and saying different things about Matt Campbell blew it, blah, blah, blah. And now look at him, winners is 3 straight, sitting at 5-3 with a quarterback that's figuring it out and still young and might end up being a really good player down the line. And I think that's a good part if you're an Iowa State guy, and that's a complicated part if you're going up against him. It's a tough place to play. Their defense is going to be well coached. They're going to play those big 3 interior defense linemen and kind of control the action with those 5 guys that they basically never move. Bigger physical guys that they just don't move, and you got to move them to run the ball. So it's always a challenge in there. And then offensively, they have weapons outside, and they now have a quarterback that can distribute the ball to them. So those early down RPOs have been, to me, the thing that's kind of stabilized their passing game. So I think it's going to be important for Kansas to kind of use what they've developed over the last 2 weeks defending RPO to kind of carry them into this game, because I do think, RPO can be a quarterback's best friend, and for Rocco, that's kind of been the case.
Yeah, no, most definitely. It's much of the same, I think, just from hey, look, maintain good discipline on the defensive side of the football. Yeah, with your run fits, with your with your assignments, it's going to be really crucial there for sure. Their defensive front, and I love this defense. I love this defensive structure. The 3 down spill and kill kind of front that you've just got a lot of athletes flying to the football as you try to force stuff wide, get stuff down outside to the edge. It's a great scheme. You got a really difficult front you got to try to navigate with that 3 down front. KU had mixed bag of results playing against this front last year. Feels like they had some early success, but then things kind of settled in for them. I think the story for me for this game, I think KU can do enough defensively. For me, the storyline is, how does Kansas handle a scheme that has admittedly given them some trouble in the past? Andy Kotelnicki, you talk about this 3 down front can really give them some problems. How do they navigate it? I think it's going to be a big key for this game. BMAC.
Absolutely. I think what they do is they have those big old linebackers, and they're just their ability to cover space. So they're not just big guys. They're guys that can run sideline to sideline. They don't miss tackles. They don't have pass drop responsibilities. So they're not fooled by a lot of the play action and pull and that sort of stuff. They're not big into drops, because a lot of times, they've got 6 DBs out there rotating all over the field. So sometimes they may not even have a drop. So it kind of keeps them engaged on the run game. And what we saw from Oklahoma State was that C-gap run was very difficult because of how big those guys were playing that 5 technique. And 5 technique is a guy on the outside shoulder of the tackle. That gave Kansas a lot of trouble against Oklahoma State. They could not move those guys to make those down blocks and kickouts clean. So I think that's something that they're going to have to address and look at, maybe simplifying some aspects of their run game. I thought that's what helped them against Oklahoma State, was just running some traditional inside zone in the one series where Highshaw kind of got going. So it'll be interesting to see, since he's dealt with it and seen where it's giving him trouble. I'll be tuned in to see what kind of ways Coach Kotelnicki adjusts some of their run game to kind of prepare for that big down 5 set. What I liked about what Cincinnati did a couple games ago was Cincinnati ran a lot of quarterback run to get the numbers back in their favor. So a lot of times they would spread out, trips to the field or trio to the field, and they would run, a quarterback lead to the right, and the numbers were in their favor. They had 6 people. Iowa State had 5. So that might be something that Kansas looks at. I wonder if Jason Bean putting that zone read on film will kind of encourage them to get another guy in there, kind of open up some of the passing game. So it's going to be a fun chess match between 2 strong units.
Absolutely. BMAC, before we get out of here, I want to get a prediction from you for this game. what you got, this massive opportunity for Kansas to continue to build off of their success and play a really tough Iowa State team at night on the road. What say you for this game?
I'm going to go 27-21 for the Jayhawks. I think it's a game where they can get up in that range and be disruptive enough to limit Iowa State on offense.
I like that. I think it's going to be a lower scoring game. I think KU's defense is going to play one of their better performances of the year, and they'll slow that team that's having some success recently down. I like it. Let's go 21-17. I do think it's going to be an uglier football game, similar to what we saw the last time that these two teams played. I think Kansas will find some answers enough to get some points. I think KU's going to play from the front for the majority of this game too. I think they'll be playing from the front for the majority of it, and I think this defense is going to put together a really strong performance. That is going to do it for this episode of Booth Review. Thanks again to our guy Derek Fine for jumping on the show. That's Brandon McAnderson. I'm Kent Swanson. We'll catch you later.